It all kicked off about 6 months ago. I was sitting at my desk at Apex Office Integrators on a Wednesday afternoon, killing time before a long 2-hour conference call. I'm Mike Fulton, a project manager there, juggling at least 3 network integration projects at once. So yeah, I spend a ton of time on calls, handling updates, sorting out problems, and putting out fires. It was just 1:30 p.m., and I was scrolling through some cameras online, thinking about buying one, when my phone buzzed. Without even looking away from the screen, I grabbed it. Mike Fulton, Apex Office Integrators, I said. Is this Mike Fulton? A woman's voice asked. Yeah, that's me. Who's this? I replied. I don't know if you can help me, but maybe I can help you, she said, kind of cryptic. Help me how? Wait, is your wife Brenda? I asked. Yes, she answered. And does she have a close friend named Kara? I said, starting to get a little suspicious. Yes, she said. All right, listen up. If you don't act fast, your wife's about to cheat on you, she warned. What? Who is this? This some kind of prank? Because that's messed up, I said, shocked. Her words hit me like a sucker punch. I didn't know whether to laugh, get mad, or just hang up. I can't tell you who I am. I just want to give you a chance to stop this before it happens, she said. I know Brenda. She'd never do something like that. So this had to be some sick joke. But who would do that? Why try to mess with me like this? Was she just a pawn? Was someone else behind this call? I wanted to hang up but decided to play along, at least for a bit, to see what this was really about. What makes you think Brenda's cheating? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I overheard them talking, she said. Who? What exactly? I asked. Well, your wife and her friends Kara and Francis? Every Wednesday they go to lunch at this place called Vinny's. They sit by the window near the door. I eat there too, alone. And I tend to listen in to other people's talks because eating solo gets boring, she explained. Kara's Brenda's college bestie. They've been tight forever. We all went to the same college, and I met them at a party years ago. Kara's been with her husband John since before Brenda and I got together. Francis? Never heard that name before. Brenda never mentioned anyone called Francis. So you're saying Brenda's planning to cheat? I asked. Not exactly. Here's the deal. Kara's been bragging about her own affairs over the last couple years and telling Brenda how thrilling it is. She's been pushing Brenda to have an affair too, saying it'd spice things up, not just for Brenda but for her bed life with you. Brenda's been saying no, but lately she's less shut down about it. She's even asking questions, getting curious. It worries me. You gotta stop this before it goes too far, she said. Why do you care? Why tell me? I asked. Look, I just don't want to see anyone wreck their marriage because of bad advice from a friend, she answered. How long have you been listening to them? I asked, smelling something fishy but still wanting to dig. 6 or 7 weeks. So, what are you gonna do? She challenged. There it was, the bait. I wasn't gonna fall for it, but didn't want to blow it yet. I'm not sure. I gotta figure out more first. Can I call you if I need to? I asked. No, I'll call you if we gotta talk again, she said. Of course, she wouldn't give me a number, but I had to try. I felt trapped. Either ignore it all or pretend I believed her to find out who was behind this. All right, you'll call me? I said. Please do, she said. I hung up and sat there trying to process the call. It all sounded like crap. Brenda wouldn't cheat on me, not in our 13 years together, 2 dating, 11 married. She's been loyal, loving, and always showing me how much she cares. And I'm no saint either. I've been just as faithful. There were 2 big reasons I just couldn't believe Brenda would cheat on me. Kevin and Michelle, our kids. Kevin's 6 and Michelle's 8. Brenda's not the type to hurt our kids, so I knew this whole thing had to be some kind of scam. I shoved that weird phone call out of my head and jumped into a 2-hour conference call. The issues we talked about on that call kept me busy all afternoon, which helped distract me from the strange call. But when I was driving home, it all crept back into my mind. I was planning to tell Brenda about the call right after work, but on the way home, I changed my mind. Didn't want to stress her out over something I wasn't sure about. I decided I'd tell her once I figured out who was behind the prank, or whatever it was. That whole night, I kept thinking about whether I should tell her or not, but it didn't really matter. There wasn't even a chance to talk. Kevin and Michelle had me helping with homework, and once they were finally asleep, my project manager in California called me. While I was on the phone, Brenda came into my office, kissed me on the cheek, whispered she was wiped and heading to bed. By the time I got off the phone, she was already out cold. Thursday was nuts, so I shoved the call out of my mind again. At first, I wondered if I'd get another call, but by lunch, I'd forgotten all about it and nothing came. I half expected it on Friday, too, but when it didn't ring, I just let the whole thing go, irritation and all. Once I pushed it aside, it stayed buried until the following Wednesday. The morning went smooth, and the second half looked like it'd stay that way. Then, Jake Peterson popped into my office. Jake's the project manager for the Northeast. We were chatting about usual project headaches and how to fix them when my phone rang. "Mike Fulton here," I said. "Hey, Mike, it's me again," said the voice I knew too well. "Hang on a sec. I've got someone here," I told her. "Sure, Jake. You cool if I take this?" I asked Jake. "No problem," Jake said, getting up. Just as he headed for the door, he spun around and joked, "Is that your girlfriend?" Then laughed and shut the door. "I'm back," I said after Jake left. "You didn't do anything, did you?" she asked. "What? You didn't stop your wife, did you?" Her question threw me off, and I had to pause before answering. "I'm not sure how I feel about that yet," I said. "Anything else I should know?" "Remember it's Wednesday?" "Yeah," I said, but didn't really catch the meaning at first. "That's right, you remember. But your wife had lunch with her girlfriends again today," she said. My stomach tightened. I tried to keep cool. "So, you overheard their conversation today?" I asked. "Yeah. And I'm telling you, you better decide what to do soon, or it'll be too late," she warned. "Why's that? It wasn't Kara who brought up the affair today. It was your wife." "No way. Brenda would never do that." Anger bubbled up. How the hell was I supposed to sort this out if I didn't even know who was calling me? "What'd Brenda say?" I asked. "She asked Kara if she'd been on any secret dates lately." "That doesn't mean Brenda wants an affair," I said. "No, but when Kara said she went out last night, Brenda said she wanted all the juicy details," she said. I didn't know what to say. I tried acting like the suspicious husband, even though all I really wanted was to find out who this woman was. I thought about what I'd say if I actually believed her. "Look, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time buying what you're telling me," I said. "I get that, but you've got to believe me or you're going to have a hard time later," she said. "Can we meet and talk about this?" I asked, hopeful. "No, I'll call you. You better fix this fast," she said. Then she hung up before I could say anything else. I was too pissed to focus on work after that, so I left early. Brenda's Wednesdays are busy, but not late in the usual sense. She picks up Michelle and Kevin from school, drops Kevin off at his mom's, then takes Michelle to her brownie meeting. Brenda's the assistant troop leader, so she sticks around for the whole thing. After it's over, she grabs Kevin and all three get home around 6 that evening. I got home around 3:30 and headed straight to my office. I grabbed a notepad and started breaking down the problem. As a project manager, my go-to move when something goes wrong is to grab a pencil and paper and dissect the issue until I figure out what's wrong and how to fix it. That's just how I roll. So that's exactly what I did with this mess. I began by jotting down what the caller said. "Kara's been bragging about her affairs and trying to convince Brenda to cheat. Brenda's said no so far, but seemed curious. These chats have been going on for 6 or 7 weeks. Next, I wrote a list of reasons why I thought this whole thing was BS. Brenda would never cheat on me. I've known Kara as long as Brenda, and I don't buy that she'd cheat on her husband, John. I knew Brenda and Kara met for lunch once a week, but it had been ages since Brenda mentioned those lunches, so I doubted they still met every week. The caller mentioned some Francis. I had no clue who that was. Brenda never talked about anyone named Francis. The caller claimed she sat at the table next to the three of them for 6 or 7 weeks straight. That sounded super unlikely. 3 women always at the same table, and this caller managing to snag the seat right beside them every single time? Nah, doesn't add up. Brenda's sharp. She'd notice if someone was always sitting next to them listening in. If she suspected eavesdropping, she'd switch tables or pick another spot altogether. Then I made a list of every possible reason for the call I could think of. Some buddy of mine messing with me as a prank. One of Brenda's friends pulling a joke. Someone who hates me playing dirty. Someone who hates Brenda doing the same. An ex-girlfriend of mine trying to stir trouble. One of Brenda's exes trying to cause chaos. A dude crushing on Brenda and trying to break us up. A girl crushing on me, doing the same. Or maybe a woman crushing on Brenda or a guy crushing on me, just covering all bases. Maybe we're just random sufferers of a hilarious prank. Or a TV reality show trying to catch people's reactions on camera. The TV show idea was a stretch, but I was running out of options. There were a bunch of other crazy theories I scribbled down, but honestly can't remember now. The last one on my list? That the caller was actually telling the truth, and Brenda might really be thinking about cheating. I spent the next hour weighing every option, shuffling my list to put the most believable on top and the ridiculous at the bottom. I quickly knocked out pranks by my friends or Brenda's. None of them were into that crap. Enemies? Didn't have any. Brenda didn't either. Exes? I'd had 2 before Brenda, and neither ended bad. I only knew one of Brenda's exes, and they'd broken up over a year before I met her. And crushes from someone gay or lesbian? Didn't seem likely. I ran through my list 4 times, thinking through every detail. In the end, the TV reality show was top. Then the idea that the caller was telling the truth. I wasn't happy about either. I knew no such TV show existed. It just didn't make sense. But honestly, none of the other ideas really did either. That left me with the core issue. The caller was either lying or telling the truth. If lying, why? And who else was involved? If truthful, which I still doubted, my marriage was in serious trouble. To find out, I needed to ask Brenda some questions, but without raising any red flags. If she was innocent, like I believed, it'd hurt her if she thought I didn't trust her. But if the caller was telling the truth and Brenda suspected I was onto something, she might shut down or cover up. Then I'd never know the truth. It might stop her from cheating, but I wouldn't know if she was even thinking about it. So I had to be subtle and get information out of her bit by bit. Then I heard the garage door click open. I tore up my notes and went to the kitchen to meet my wife and kids as they came in. As soon as the kitchen door swung open, Kevin ran over, gave me a playful hip bump and said, "Hey, Dad, can I go watch TV now?" "Sure, buddy," I said. Just then, Michelle burst in, holding up some pins she'd made at Brownies. "Look what I made today," she shouted, excited. "These are fire starters for the fireplace," she explained. "You light the candle and then the pin lights up. Cool, right?" "That's awesome, sweetheart. We'll use them this winter for sure," I told her. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree, proud as hell. Then she took off to join Kevin in front of the TV. About 45 minutes later, the 4 of us were sitting around the dinner table, digging into spaghetti. "How was your day?" Brenda asked. "Pretty normal, nothing wild. My projects have been running pretty smooth these last few months, so no big fires to put out," I said. "Well, if you ever need to start a fire, just use one of my pins," Michelle joked. "Daddy," Michelle giggled. "That's right, Shell. Next time I want to set one of my projects on fire, I'll just use your pins," I teased back. Michelle laughed and twirled some spaghetti on her fork. I turned to Brenda. "Hey, have you seen Kara lately?" I asked. "Yeah, I actually had lunch with her today," Brenda said. "Really? I didn't realize you were still doing that," I replied. "We still get together every Wednesday for lunch," Brenda said. But why'd you ask if I'd seen her?" "You haven't mentioned her in a while. And it's been almost a year since we've seen Kara and John. Thought maybe we should get together with them for dinner sometime," I said. "Want to do it this weekend?" "I can call Kara," Brenda offered. "Sounds good to me. It'd be nice to see them again," I replied. Now knowing Brenda and Kara still met weekly, I decided to push a little further. "So, every week, huh? Where do you guys usually go?" I asked. "Vinny's. It's a small Italian spot in that shopping center on Appian Way," Brenda explained. I knew the area, big supermarket, pharmacy, a few specialty stores, a coffee shop, and a Domino's pizza joint. But I'd never heard of Vinny's before. "Do you always hit the same place?" I asked. "Yeah, the food's good and cheap. Most of the time we grab takeout, so it's easy to find a table. The service is quick, and it's just convenient for the 3 of us," Brenda said. A weird knot formed in my stomach. So far, everything matched what that caller said. "Wait, 3 of you? I thought it was just you and Kara," I said. "Oh, Kara's college roommate started working with her about a year ago, and she's been joining us for lunch every week," Brenda said. "Do I know her?" I asked. "Nah, you've never met Frances. She was Kara's roommate for a couple years, but had already graduated before you met us," Brenda replied. "So it's the 3 of you every week. Maybe I'll come by sometime," I said, watching Brenda's face. "That'd be great. We'd love to have you join," Brenda said. "Yeah, sure. The ladies want their husband to come complain about us over lunch," I joked. "Aren't you going to lunch to complain about your husbands?" Brenda laughed. "Of course, but I'm going to complain about you right to your face, so it won't matter if you're there or not," I said, and Brenda laughed at me. After dinner, I helped Brenda clean up. And then we put the kids to bed. This part of the day is my favorite. I'd flop down on the couch. Brenda would sit next to me, resting her head on my shoulder. We'd hang out like that for about half an hour. Then she'd stretch out her legs, lay her head in my lap, and I'd gently run my fingers through her hair and over her face until she fell asleep. I love those quiet moments, just watching her sleep. But that night, I didn't get that peace. A tiny seed of doubt sprouted in my mind, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop it from growing. Thursday wasn't any easier. Every time my phone rang, I half expected it to be that caller again. But all the calls I got were work-related. One was from Tom, my project manager in Denver. We'd been working on migrating a network for a big company headquartered there for over a year, and things were going well. Tom called and said, "Hey, Mike, can you come out for a quarterly review with the client?" I told him, "I'll call the VP of E8 and set something up in about 2 weeks. I've got a good relationship with the VP, and I'm actually looking forward to it." The visit usually lasted 4 days. I'd leave early on day 1, meet Tom to get the lowdown on the schedule and project status, and go over any issues he wanted me to bring up with the VP. Day 2 was meeting Tom's team to get their feedback. On day 3, I met with the VP for about an hour. Then usually we played golf and had dinner. The last day was just flying back home to Richmond. Brenda said, "We're having dinner with Kara and John on Saturday." We slipped back into our usual evening rhythm. Friday was packed. I had 3 conference calls. Then a problem popped up on my Tulsa project. I spent most of the day on the phone calming down the client, promising, "We'll fix the issue by day's end and the project will still finish on time." Wednesday's call wasn't even on my radar when I walked through the door. Brenda was there waiting, greeting me with a kiss. "Dinner will be ready in about 20 minutes, she said. "The kids are upstairs playing, so we've got some time to sit down and have a quiet drink before we eat. What are you feeling?" "I was thinking a cold beer in a frosted mug all the way home," I said. "Just sit tight. I'll bring it to you," she replied. Nothing about this was out of the ordinary. Brenda always treated me like this, and I never took it for granted. I made sure to return the favor whenever I could. I settled into my favorite chair, and Brenda came in carrying our drinks. She set them down on the coffee table and then sidled up beside me. She leaned in close and whispered, "Been thinking about you all day." I knew exactly what she meant. Even after 11 years of marriage, our bed life was still solid, so we had our little moments. I got up and asked, "Want some wine?" She nodded, and I poured us both a glass. As we sat there sipping, Brenda looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Mike, I've been mulling this over the past few weeks. How do you feel about having another baby?" "Wait, you're serious?" I asked. "Yeah, I'm 33 now, and I don't want to wait 2 or 3 more years to get pregnant," she said. "Kevin's turning 7 in a couple months," she added, "and I feel like if we're ever going to do it, now's the time." "If you're sure that's what you want, then I'm on board," I said. "Good. I'll stop taking the pill tomorrow and start trying," she said with a smile. I kissed the tip of her nose and grinned. "And I think we should practice a little more tonight, don't you?" "Absolutely," she replied without hesitation. "Boy or girl?" she asked. "What do you want?" I shot back. "How about one of each?" I joked. "Come on, seriously, boy or girl?" she pressed. "Honestly, I don't care, just want a healthy baby," I said. "That's the right answer," Brenda said with a smile. That night, while Brenda drifted off to sleep, I lay awake thinking about having another kid. Then my mind drifted back to those phone calls. If Brenda was actually considering an affair, she wouldn't be stopping birth control to get pregnant. That felt like solid proof the calls were bogus. Eventually, I dozed off and had a nightmare where Brenda had an affair and got pregnant. Waking up, I felt huge relief that it was just a dream. But at the same time, a dark cloud was settling in my mind. I thought about telling Brenda about the calls again, but decided not to. I realized that if I brought it up, it might start a chain reaction that would shut me out from figuring out what was really going on. If I told her, she'd probably tell Kara, and then who knows who else would find out. I figured the caller probably wouldn't know I'd told Brenda, or that I hadn't fallen for whatever game was being played. Hopefully, that would be the end of it. But there was still a tiny chance the caller was telling the truth, and I needed to know. I couldn't just let it drop. No more calls came that week, but that didn't ease my mind. The mystery was eating at me. Saturday night, Brenda and I were getting ready to go out for dinner with Kara and John. I hoped the night would help me unwind, but I didn't know how. We had a great time. The food was delicious, and the conversation flowed easy. I kept an eye on Kara and John, trying to catch anything off, but saw nothing suspicious. Kara didn't look like she was hiding secrets from John or me. Still, when we got home, I was stuck. No obvious problems between them, no secretive looks between Kara and Brenda. That should have calmed me, but it didn't. I felt myself slipping into a funk until Brenda kissed my ear and whispered, "Been thinking about you today. Time to go make a baby." I followed her to our bedroom and gave it my best shot. When we finished, she laughed. "You do know it's way too soon for me to get pregnant, right? I only stopped taking the pill 2 days ago." "I know," I said. "How about we try again tomorrow night?" she suggested. "Sounds good," I said as she kissed me. Monday morning found me sitting at my desk when a thought hit me. If that caller was sitting in the restaurant where Brenda and Kara have lunch on Wednesdays, then all I had to do was show up there one Wednesday and figure out who she was. I had to think it through carefully. I'd kind of threatened to show up for lunch sometime, and Brenda acted like it was no big deal. So if I just appeared at the restaurant, it probably wouldn't raise any alarms for her. The tricky part was this. If the caller saw me before I identified her, she'd disappear, and I'd lose my shot. I didn't know if the caller even knew what I looked like. It was possible she did, and would have noticed me if I'd been hanging around the restaurant before. On Monday, I took a long lunch break and drove out to Appian Way, where Vinny's was located. I knew there was no way I could just walk into Vinny's unnoticed. It's a small place, and I'd definitely stand out. But across the street, there was a parking lot with a spot right behind a fence that blocked most of my car from view. From there, I could watch the restaurant without anyone really seeing me. That Monday night, before going to bed, I put my binoculars in the car to make sure I wouldn't forget them on Wednesday. I wanted to be ready. Tuesday turned out to be an absolutely insane day at work. I kept my head down, staying busy so I wouldn't obsess over having to wait another whole day to do something about what was going on. But man, the waiting was eliminating me. Wednesday morning, I left the office at 11 a.m. sharp and headed straight to that parking spot behind the fence near Vinny's. Luckily, the spot was open, so I pulled in, looked around to make sure nobody was paying attention, and took out my binoculars. I trained them on the restaurant's front window. The only problem was the sun was blazing, reflecting off the glass, making it damn near impossible to see inside clearly. There was nothing else to do but wait. I pulled out the sandwich and soda I'd packed, ate my lunch in the car, and kept my eyes peeled. At 12:05, I spotted Brenda, Kara, and a third woman, who I guessed was Frances, walk into Vinny's. I raised my binoculars and focused on the window. Sure enough, I saw the three of them sit down, right at a table by the window. The caller's story checked out. The table next to theirs? It looked empty. I didn't get a good look, but no one was sitting there. For the next 45 minutes, I kept my gaze locked on the restaurant entrance. Tons of people came in and out, but most were picking up takeout orders. No one ever sat at that empty table beside Brenda and her friends. I waited until the three women left, watching carefully to see if anyone came out after them. No one did. I started wondering, had my mystery caller skipped lunch today? Or maybe she saw me and bolted before I could catch her. I had to rush back to the office in case she called. I wanted her to think I was just following my usual routine and eating lunch at my desk, even though there was no way she could have known that. No sooner had I stepped into my office than the phone rang. "Hello, Apex Office Integrators, Mike Fulton speaking," I answered. "Mike, I'm starting to worry about you," said the voice on the other end, cold and serious. "You still haven't done anything to stop your wife." "How do you know I haven't done anything?" I asked, my heart starting to race. "Because of what your wife said at lunch today," she said flatly. "You listened to their conversation again?" I asked, unable to hide the edge in my voice. "Of course. What else do I have for entertainment?" she shot back. "You better start listening to me. I like eavesdropping on their talks, but I hate bringing you bad news," she said. "Then why call me?" I asked, voice rough. "I guess I feel better about snooping if I can help you." "Maybe that makes me less of a bad person," she said. "But either way, things are heading toward a dangerous point." "What exactly do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "Today, your wife told her friend that the next time you have to go out of town for work, she's going to have her little affair," she said quietly. It got to the point where Kara even suggested a double date and said she knew the right guys to take them out. I could feel cold tension creeping up my spine, tightening in my chest. I didn't know what to say or do. I still refused to believe Brenda would think about cheating on me. But the story was starting to sound real. "Well, are you gonna do something about this or just sit there and let it happen?" The voice pressed. "If you're not going to act, Tell me now so I can stop wasting my time worrying about you. I'll take care of it, I snapped, then slammed the phone down hard. Over and over, I replayed every word. By the time I got home, I was sure I had a serious problem on my hands, but I still couldn't be certain Brenda was the problem. I was about to convince myself she was innocent. Then, at dinner, the hammer dropped. I was chatting with the kids about their day when Brenda asked, "Don't you have that trip to Denver coming up?" I'd planned the trip for next week, but with everything swirling in my head, I'd forgotten to mention it to her. What really freaked me out was the timing. The caller said Brenda told Kara she'd have an affair the next time I went out of town. And here she was just casually asking if I was heading to Denver soon. Was it a coincidence? I had no idea what to think. I fought hard to push the thought away when Brenda asked if we were going to try making a baby that night. In the end, I told her I wasn't feeling well. Thursday morning, I made a move I never imagined I would. I booked a private investigator. I set up a meeting for Friday morning. Then I called my Denver client and pushed the trip back a week. I had to get this mess sorted out, no matter what. Before I left for Denver that evening, I pulled out some pictures from one of our albums to give to the private investigator. I wanted him to have anything that might help. Friday morning at 9:30, I walked into the AAA detective agency. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting top-notch from a place called AAA. They probably picked that name just so they'd show up near the top of the phone book. And sure enough, they were third on the list. They got my business mostly because I don't call the first agency I find, and the second one never picked up the phone. A guy named Brian Dunstan led me to his office, and I spent about 20 minutes explaining exactly what I needed done. Then I handed over the photos. Brian glanced at them and said, "She's a good-looking woman." The way he said it made me cringe. I was already thinking low of this guy. I couldn't respect a man whose job was digging into other people's dirty laundry. Spying on cheating spouses? Not my thing. "Yes, it is," I snapped back. "Now let me run through my instructions one more time." "First thing," he said, "you have to be invisible. She can't know anyone's tailing her." "No problem, mister." "Dunstan," I said, "you're the pro. I want proof if she's seeing someone else. Photos, videos, recordings, whatever it takes. Clear evidence." "Don't sweat it, Mr. Fulton. If she's playing around, we'll catch it," he promised. "I want all evidence by next Thursday." "Got it. Come back next Thursday around 3 p.m., and we'll hand over everything we find." "All right. Next Thursday at 3. See you then." Walking out of Dunstan's office, I felt uneasy. This wasn't going to be easy. The next few days flew by. I did my best to keep everything normal around Brenda so she wouldn't suspect a thing. I didn't want to shake the kids up either. I was proud when I managed to make love to Brenda 4 nights out of 7 that week. Wednesday afternoon, I sat in my office, eyes glued to the phone. At 1:30, it finally rang. "Have you done anything yet?" the voice asked as soon as I said hello. "I've got everything under control," I replied. "What are you doing?" she pressed. "I can't say. Just know it'll be over by this weekend." She tried to push for more, but I told her that was all I'd say and hung up. At 3 p.m., Thursday, I was back in Brian Dunstan's office. "Mr. Fulton," he said, looking grim, "I have bad news. We caught her in the act, and we've got proof." He handed me a DVD. All the footage is legit, shot in public places. No hidden cams in hotel rooms or houses. It's all court admissible. We've got a player next door if you want to watch now. "I'll take it with me and watch in private," I said. "And send me a bill, I'll pay it." Back in my office, I locked the door, loaded the DVD into my laptop, and hit play. Dunstan was right. The evidence was there. The first clip, timestamped Monday the 9 p.m., showed Brenda sitting in a bar booth with a guy. The dude had his arms wrapped around her neck. They kissed a bunch, then got up and danced, totally lost in each other. Next, at 10:15 p.m., she got into a car with the same guy. Then, at 11:05, they walked into a motel room at the downtown Ramada Inn. At 1:25 a.m., they left the room and went back to the bar. Then she got in her car and drove home. The next clip was Wednesday at 9:07 a.m. Brenda was having breakfast with another guy at a restaurant. Later, the detective followed a car that seemed to belong to this guy. At first, I didn't see Brenda in the car. Her head wasn't visible. But then, she popped up as the car turned into the parking lot of an abandoned warehouse. The camera zoomed in on the car from far away. I couldn't tell if anyone else was inside. Then it got closer, and I saw a guy having fun in the back seat. That was too much for me. I downloaded the video to my hard drive, burned a copy to a blank DVD, then deleted the file off my laptop. I slipped the DVD into a protective sleeve, then tucked it into a big manila envelope. The original DVD went into the safe in my office. That evening, I went home with a heavy heart. I got there about 20 minutes before Brenda. The garage door opened and Kevin and Michelle burst inside without even saying hi. Behind them, Brenda smiled as she walked in. "You're home early," she said. "Just getting ready to make a baby tonight," I teased. Brenda laughed. "Good," she said. "I've been thinking about you all day." "Did you get the mail?" I asked. "No, I forgot," she replied. "I'll grab it," I said. "Sit down." "I'll get it," she insisted. "Can't have your little boys slacking off on their chores." Brenda walked through the front door carrying the usual stack of mail, credit card offers, real estate flyers, and a pile of other junk nobody ever really reads. But mixed in with all that was a large, thick manila envelope that immediately caught my eye. She dumped the junk mail on the coffee table, sorting through it quickly, and then held out the big envelope to me. "This one's for you," she said. Her voice casual, but something in her eyes told me she was curious too. "No return address." I didn't respond right away. I just took the envelope and set it down beside me on the couch. Without missing a beat, I asked, "How about a beer?" She smiled. "I'd love one." I stood, stretched a little, and headed into the kitchen. The refrigerator door opened with a soft hum, and I grabbed 2 cold beers, nice and frosty. Coming back into the living room, I handed one over to Brenda and then eased down into the couch. We started talking about work, how my projects were moving along, the usual office drama, and then Brenda broke the silence. "Aren't you at least a little curious what's inside that envelope?" she asked, nodding toward the coffee table. I shrugged, trying to keep it light. "Probably just more junk mail, right? Something boring." She grinned, a little mischievous. "I know, but why don't you open it anyway, just for fun?" I was about to peel back the flap when the phone rang. Brenda jumped up and grabbed it. I sat back, watching her out of the corner of my eye, catching the first few words of her side of the call. "Hello?" she said, sounding a bit tense. "Oh, hey," she answered softly. "What, are you serious?" "Hold on a sec," she said, her voice dropping as she walked away toward the kitchen. The rest of the conversation was muffled, but I caught enough to know something was wrong. The call didn't last long, no more than 10 minutes. When she came back into the room, her face looked tight with worry. "I need to meet Kara," she said quietly. "It's urgent." "Urgent? What do you mean, urgent?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I don't know the details." Kara sounded too upset to talk much on the phone. "Can you take care of feeding the kids and putting them to bed?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "You know I've done this before plenty of times." "I know. I'm sorry." "I'm just really worried," she said, grabbing her purse and keys. "I'll be back as soon as I can. Don't worry about me," Brenda said as she headed for the door. "Take care of Kara, okay?" I said after her. Once Brenda was gone, I walked into the family room. Kevin and Michelle were parked in front of the TV, eyes glued to whatever show was on. "Mom had to step out for a while, so guess who's cooking tonight?" I announced. The kids perked up a little. "You got 2 dinner options, liver and onions or McDonald's. Your call," I said, trying to keep it light. Kevin immediately started yelling, "McDonald's! McDonald's! McDonald's!" Michelle, always the smart one, said with a sly smile. "That's a tough choice. You know how much I love liver, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to cook. So I'm going with McDonald's to make it easier on you." I scooped Michelle up, spun her around once in the air, set her down, and tickled her ribs. "You're such a silly baby." Kevin didn't want to miss out and tugged my hand. My turn. "I want to fly like Michelle." I lifted him, swung him around, then tickled him till he laughed. The 3 of us piled into the car and hit McDonald's. We were back home in less than an hour. Upstairs, I sent the kids off to get ready for bed. By 8 o'clock, they were tucked in, lights out. Kevin was already asleep. I sat on the edge of Michelle's bed, listening to her tell me all about her day at school, the friends she hung out with, what she learned, and the little adventures she had. When she finished, I kissed her forehead, whispered goodnight, and switched off the light. Back downstairs, I grabbed a beer from the fridge, settled on the couch, and took a long sip. Then I reached for the big manila envelope sitting on the table and opened it, carefully spreading the contents out. Inside were 2 copies of my trip itinerary to Denver, airline tickets, a hotel reservation, and a rental car confirmation. I pinned 1 copy of the itinerary to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a bunch of bananas. A little silly, but it always made me smile. The rest I folded and slipped into my briefcase. Then I picked up the Sports Illustrated magazine and started flipping through it, though my mind wasn't really in it. By the time Brenda came home, it was nearly midnight. I could tell right away she was still rattled from whatever had happened with Kara. What happened? I asked gently. Huh? What happened to Kara? Give me a beer first, and then I'll tell you everything, she said. Want me to get you one? Yeah, please. She came back with a beer, sat down next to me on the couch, and took a deep breath before starting. John kicked her out tonight, she said quietly. What happened? What did John do? I asked, my stomach nodding. When Kara got home from work around 6:30, John was already waiting for her. He'd packed a bag, told her to get out, and that she needed to come with him, Brenda said. Oh man, does John have someone else? Is that why? I asked, shocked. No way, Brenda said firmly. You know John. He'd never do that. I was silent for a moment, then whispered, It's Kara, isn't it? She had another man, right? Brenda looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Yeah. John found out she was fooling around. Jesus, what the hell is wrong with her? She had a great guy. I thought she loved him, I said, frustration building. She loves him, Brenda said softly. If she loves him, how the hell could she cheat? I asked. I don't know. I don't understand it either, she said. I feel so sorry for her. You feel sorry for her? What about John? She betrayed him, Brenda, I said, disbelief creeping into my voice. I know, Brenda said, but he didn't have to kick her out and punch her too. That part I hated. Punch her? I asked, eyes wide. He called her a hoe and punched her in the face, Brenda said, voice trembling. That's it? I asked, stunned. What do you mean, that's it? She shot back. He slapped her, she said. That's not right, I said firmly. You're taking her side? She challenged. No, but John should have handled it better, I said. You know how much he loved her. It must have crushed him. If it happened to me, I probably would have done the same, maybe worse. I love you more than anything, but if you ever hurt me like that, I don't think I'd react any differently than John, she said quietly. I'm not taking her side, I said. I just think John should have given her a chance to explain. What's there to explain? You want John to let her spin a lie about why she cheated? I asked. Why are you so upset about this? I'm upset because I feel John's pain, she said softly. Well, if the roles were reversed, I bet you wouldn't be so quick to forgive him, I said, shaking my head. Brenda started to say something, but then just stopped. The tension in the room thickened. You're Kara's best friend. You have lunch with her every week. Did you even know she was cheating on John? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady but firm. What? Why would you ask me that? What do you mean by that? Brenda hissed, her eyes narrowing. Brenda, you've always been straight with me. Don't start lying now. Did you know Kara was fooling around with other men behind John's back? I pressed. She avoided my gaze for a long moment before quietly admitting, yeah. For how long? I pushed. A few months, she murmured. Did you try to stop her? Did you say anything? Do anything at all? I demanded. I didn't, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. So you just let it happen. You were an enabler. By staying silent, you were basically giving her the green light, I said, anger rising in my chest. No, that's not true. I wasn't encouraging her. I didn't like what she was doing. I just didn't know how to say anything, so I said nothing, she argued. So you're partly to blame for what went down today, I said, unable to hide the bitterness. I surprised myself by how furious I was with Brenda in that moment. How can you say it's my fault? I didn't tell her to cheat on John, she shot back. But you did nothing to stop her cheating. And now that she's been caught, you're defending her? I don't think I know you anymore. You've always preached how important fidelity is in marriage. Does that only apply to husbands or not to your closest friends? I challenged. Kara messed up. She's my friend, and I have to stand by her. She's hurting bad, Brenda said, her voice cracking with emotion. What about John? You think he isn't hurting? This isn't just about Kara and John. It's about what they're doing to us, I said, getting up from the couch. I'm going to bed. Brenda said nothing. I lay awake for a long time, replaying our fight in my head. I was angry at her for not seeing the damage Kara caused, angry at myself for losing my temper. But maybe this would make Brenda think twice. If she was ever tempted to stray, that thought had to die now. When Brenda slipped into bed about half an hour later, I pretended to be asleep, not ready to face her. The next few days were cold between us, like a thin frost had settled over the house. Monday morning, I caught a plane to Denver. I decided not to call Brenda as soon as I landed. She broke the silence and called me at 9 a.m. 11 a.m., her time back in Richmond. Why didn't you call when you got there? she asked, her voice tight. I didn't think you wanted to talk, I admitted. She was quiet for a beat, then said, I don't care what you thought. You should have called, okay? I'm sorry I didn't call first. It won't happen again. We only talked for about 5 minutes. Brenda said she wanted to make sure I arrived safe before she went to bed and told me to call early the next day to check in with the kids. The rest of the week, Brenda was warmer when we talked. We both avoided bringing up Kara and John. My flight home Thursday was scheduled to land just after 7 p.m. Before leaving Denver. I called Brenda to let her know what time I'd be home. Can you grab something to eat on your way? She asked. I'm picking up the kids to have dinner with my parents. You won't make it in time, I told her. No problem. I'll see you at home, she said. My flight arrived right on time. On the way home, I decided to stop by a familiar little grill bar known for killer burgers. When I walked in, I spotted John sitting at the bar getting a drink. I decided to catch up and see how he was holding up. John had already moved to a booth when I joined him, and to my surprise, he was sitting with a woman I didn't know. Hey, John, how you doing? I said, sliding into the booth. Mike, good to see you, he said. Doing as well as can be expected, given everything. This is my friend Fanny, John said, gesturing to the woman next to him. Fanny Mike, John introduced. Nice to meet you, Fanny, I said, shaking her hand. If it weren't for Fanny, I might have completely lost it over all this, John admitted. Well, it's really good to meet you then, I said. Turning to Fanny, I added, we're just grabbing a quick drink before dinner. Why don't you have one with us? I ordered a beer and pulled up a chair beside the booth. We didn't talk about Kara or the mess she'd made. John kept the conversation mostly about Fanny, explaining they'd known each other since college. He shared stories about their time back then, before turning the conversation to ask about Brenda and the kids. After about 20 minutes, John excused himself to the bathroom. When he came back, Fanny smiled at me. Fanny, guess that's a nickname. Your real name's Frances, right? I asked. Right, she said. And you've done a good job. What do you mean? I asked. I'm a problem solver, she replied. So, how long have you been in love with John? I pressed. Since college, she said quietly. You were Kara's roommate back then, weren't you? I asked. Yeah, she nodded. Smart move. So you used me to get Kara out of the picture? I said flatly. Yes, she admitted. I couldn't do it alone. I didn't want Kara to know I betrayed her, and I didn't want to be the one to tell John his wife was cheating. Do you feel good about what you did? I asked. I don't feel bad. If Kara hadn't started cheating on John, I'd have been stuck in the background forever. I never wanted to hurt either of them. But once she bragged about cheating, I had to stop it. And why not help myself while I was at it? But why drag Brenda and me into it? I demanded. There was no one else, Fanny said softly. I'm sorry you got caught up, but I couldn't let Kara keep doing what she was doing without consequences. How did you know I'd warned John about Kara's cheating? I asked. I've been having lunch with Brenda every week for over a year. She talks about you all the time. She painted a picture of a man with strong morals. I knew you'd put a stop to Kara's cheating one way or another. And I was pretty sure John would find out eventually. Doing it all anonymously was a stroke of genius. John actually thinks it was the wife of one of Kara's friends who hired a detective and sent him the photos. I've got one more question, I said. You lied about Brenda being interested in the affair, didn't you? Yes. I needed to hook you into the conversation. Brenda was really upset, but I never said anything to her directly. Brenda and I talked about it several times. She hoped Kara would come to her senses and stop messing around. I never told Brenda what I told you. I wanted John to catch her himself. So Kara never really tried to convince Brenda to cheat? I asked. Once, Fanny said. But Brenda made it clear she wasn't having any of it. That's when I decided to call you. I twisted the story a bit, but at the core, it was Kara's idea. I wasn't sure whether I hated Fanny or admired her guts. She found a way to warn John, then stuck around to support him through the fallout. Before I could get another word in with Fanny, I noticed John coming back from the restroom. He slid into the booth next to us, and we finished our drinks in relative silence. Right before they got up to leave, John turned toward me, his eyes serious but hopeful. Mike, I don't know what the future holds for any of us, he said quietly, but I hope you and Brenda will still consider me a friend. I gave him a nod, feeling the weight of his words. I'm sure we will, John. No doubt about it. Fanny, sitting beside him, smiled with this knowing, sly look that made me uneasy but also oddly impressed. It was really nice meeting you, Mike, she said, her voice smooth but with an edge. Right back at ya. I said, standing as they headed for the door. Once they were gone, I ordered a cheeseburger with fries and another cold beer. I settled back into the booth, chewing slowly, letting the flavors soak in. There was this strange feeling washing over me, almost euphoric, but I didn't get why at first. Then it hit me. The tension, the worry, the stress that had been clinging to me for weeks, all of it suddenly disappeared. I kept telling myself I didn't believe Brenda would ever cheat, but there was this nagging voice in the back of my mind. When Fanny told me that Brenda had never shown any interest in an affair, that she had made it clear she would never do something like that, it didn't register at first. But when it finally did, it was like a punch to the gut. That was the moment the cheeseburger became the best one I'd ever tasted. Not just because it was good food, but because it symbolized a breakthrough, a relief. Finishing up, I called Brenda to say I was on my way. She told me she was just about to leave her parents' house and would be home in about half an hour. That 30 minutes stretched on forever in my head. I pulled into the driveway 15 minutes before she got home. I was jittery with excitement and nerves, my mind swirling with what I just learned from Fanny. I wanted to apologize to Brenda for how I'd acted the night John threw Kara out. I wanted to hold her close, whisper how much I loved her, and make up for lost time. I wanted to pull her into the kitchen as soon as she walked in and make love to her right there on the floor. But the kids had to be asleep first. And then it hit me. Brenda had been angry with me when I left for Denver. I wondered if that anger was still simmering under the surface. Maybe this homecoming wouldn't go the way I hoped. I might spend the whole night trying to win back her forgiveness, for being too hard on her, for not stepping in to stop Kara from wrecking her marriage. I thought about those guys I worked with, married men bragging about their conquests on business trips. I disapproved but never said a word. Maybe I was just as guilty as Brenda had been with Kara, turning a blind eye. The only reason I had been so hard on Brenda was because I wanted her to understand that if she ever betrayed me, she'd be signing up for the same heartbreak Kara did. But now that I knew Brenda hadn't even entertained the idea of cheating, I couldn't justify my behavior. I could never tell her the real reason behind my anger. So I just hoped she'd forgive me. Then there was the bigger question, how I'd handled the whole mess. I'd hired a private investigator to tail Kara, gather proof of her cheating, and send it to John. I'd helped destroy their marriage to save mine. John found out the truth, and Kara got what she deserved. But sitting there in the quiet, I wondered if I'd chosen the right path. Maybe I should have confronted Kara directly and talked things through with her. Suddenly, I found myself saying out loud what I'd been thinking all along. I acted selfishly to protect my marriage, and I'd do it again if I had to. I felt sorry for John, but it wasn't my fault Kara cheated on him, and there was no reason to think she'd ever stop. I was sitting on the couch in the living room when the garage door opened. I debated whether to wait where I was or run to meet Brenda and the kids as they came in. I decided to stay put. When the kitchen door opened, I didn't hear the usual noise. Michelle and Kevin never come in quietly. I waited another minute, expecting the kids to dash into the living room, but nothing. I turned toward the kitchen and saw Brenda standing in the doorway. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "They're staying overnight at my parents'," she said softly. "Tomorrow's a teacher workday, so no school." Brenda wore a white skirt and a red blouse. I've always loved seeing her in red. It suits her. "You look beautiful," I said. "Thanks. I know you like this blouse, so I wore it for you," she smiled. Something inside me eased, a flicker of hope. She stepped closer, standing right in front of me. "I have something to tell you," she said quietly. "Please don't interrupt. I've been thinking about what you said last week, and I finally understand. I had to do something to stop Kara. I think I knew deep down her games would end like this. I feel terrible about it. I'm sorry I argued with you." "You don't need to apologize," I told her. "I overreacted too. Kara was your best friend. You didn't know how to deal with her cheating. Honestly, I don't know how I'd have handled it if our roles were reversed. It hurts because both John and Kara were our friends. My anger at Kara's betrayal came out on you, and that's not fair, but I think you did the same. What happened to John and Kara is sad, but we can't let it break us." I held out my hand. Brenda took it and moved closer. "I love you so much," I said. "I tried to stay mad at you, but when you didn't call Monday, it nearly broke me. Then I realized this is their problem. We can't make it ours." Brenda smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "Besides, we've got our own problem to fix." I raised an eyebrow. "What problem?" She looked me straight in the eye. "How can I get pregnant if you don't make love to me?" Her face softened. then blossomed into that beautiful smile I'd missed. "Well then, mister," she said playfully, "you'd better get to work." And that's exactly what we did. The next morning, Brenda was already downstairs when I got up. I slipped on shorts and a t-shirt and headed for a cup of coffee. We couldn't keep the pace every night. The kids, work, family visits, all got in the way. But a few weeks later, the test confirmed it. Brenda was pregnant.